This is the review of the 2025 Kia K5. I'm Mike Monticello, and I'm here today at the Consumer Reports Auto Test Center. The K5 is Kia's mid-size sedan, and for 2025 it gets a freshening, including new exterior styling, a refreshed interior, and a new base engine. That base engine is a 2.5-liter naturally aspirated four-cylinder that makes 191 horsepower, which is about 10 horsepower more than the previous base engine, which was a 1.6-liter turbocharged four-cylinder, both mated to an 8-speed automatic transmission. As before, the K5 is available with front or all-wheel drive. We purchased a 2025 Kia K5 GT-Line with front-wheel drive for our test program. The GT-Line is the second-tier trim of the four available for the K5. Our test car was only equipped with a couple of options, which includes the GT-Line Premium package, which has a panoramic sunroof with a power sunshade and a Bose premium audio system. Along with the $1,155 destination fee that Kia charges on all K5s, the as-tested price of our car came to $31,330. You might not think of a mainstream midsize sedan as exciting, but the new styling on the K5, it's pretty striking. Maybe the most striking midsize sedan you can buy right now. It's got a lot of angular, jagged lines and even some very fancy LED headlight treatment up here. Considering the K5's price point, we were pretty happy with the overall presentation and quality of the cabin. I mean, just starting with this giant screen, that's pretty fancy for a car that's just over $31,000. And then there's just a lot of nice details. And it may seem strange, but we look at things like when we're gauging fit and finish, that it has slightly padded windowsills, not just on the front doors, but actually on the rear doors as well. That's pretty uncommon at this price to have that in the rear. And then there's things like these big swath of matte finish wood-like trim. Got them over here on the doors. This pretty fancy glossy area around the window controls. And then you've got things like contrasting stitching on the doors, on the center console. That's all pretty good high quality stuff at this price. And then just other little details like the silver trim on the steering wheel and even the GT-Line badge that they put on the steering wheel. That's pretty cool. Not that everything's perfect. The center armrest is a little bit on the flimsy side when you lift it up. And then some of these steering wheel rocker switches, they're plastic and they just don't have a great feel when you use them. The K5's controls have been updated, but that's not to say they're necessarily better across the board. We do have a few issues with them, and let's deal with the kind of not so great stuff first, and then we'll get into the better stuff. The thing that annoys us the most is probably this dual control system for the media and climate, and it forces you to switch back and forth. You have to press these little icons, so you can't have both available. So inevitably there's going to be some point where you want to adjust the climate system and it's on media, or vice versa. Now, for someone like me who runs kind of hot, I'm for sure going to have it on the climate system all the time because I want to be able to adjust the temperature or the fan speed up and down. But what that means is now there's no audio volume control for the front passenger. Yeah, I have it over here on the steering wheel, but they now can't adjust the volume if they want. They'll have to change it back and again, pressing these tiny little icons. Also, even just within the climate system, the icons you're pressing are so small, especially like to lower the fan speed is this tiny little icon. And then also along those lines, yeah, you have these, relatively small knobs for the temperature control, and they have very weak detents, meaning, sometimes you move it more than you want. Instead of just going up like 1 degree, you're gonna go up a couple degrees. So there's some issues there with that. The infotainment system has more features than before, and with that, it kind of gives a richer experience. And it's also kind of impressive that at this price, the K5 has built-in navigation. We're also happy to see that Kia is sticking with the traditional PRND style gear selector lever. Not only is it pretty simple to use, but it's also easy to grab because it's a pretty good sized lever. Kia is usually pretty good with the small details that count, and that's generally the case with this K5. When you look at just the center console storage compartments, they all have rubber bases. And the reason why we like that is because it helps keep stuff from sliding around. When you have cheap, slippery plastic bases, you throw like things like keys in here, they make a whole lot of noise anytime you go through a corner. But there's actually, besides having rubber bases, there's a fair amount of space. You've got the wireless charging pad over here for a phone, then you've got room for another phone or maybe a wallet over there. And then of course you've got the cup holders. And then this bin here, I found works pretty well for throwing the key fob or again, like a wallet, something like that. So there's a fair amount of just small item open storage spots. And then you've also got a good sized bin underneath the center armrest. The one area that isn't quite as great is the front door pockets. While they're pretty deep, they're also pretty narrow. And along with this very angled bottle holder, there just isn't a lot of room for any kind of larger stuff to go in there. So when we talk about rating a car's driving position, we're looking at how well do drivers of all kinds of various sizes and shapes fit behind the wheel, how easy is it for them to get comfortable behind the wheel. And in some ways, the K5 is pretty good. In others, there's a couple of actual pain points. On the bright side, there's decent headroom for most of our drivers. And then we like that both the door and the center armrest are well placed and they're on similar planes. The only downside there that the padding is a little bit on the hard side. Unfortunately, the center console is plastic, it's pretty wide, and it hems in the driver's right knee. Now that's a personal pain point of mine, but I wasn't the only one. One of our testers even said it actually drives him nuts. And it would help if Kia had padded this spot, but they didn't, it's just hard plastic. Some of our taller drivers also noticed that this kind of wing here interfered with their left knee. Not a problem for me because I'm not that tall. Another issue that several of us had, including myself, this is something we've been seeing with a lot of Kia and Hyundai models lately, is that when you have the steering wheel positioned into a spot that is comfortable for you, and in my case, it's a little bit on the lower side, the upper part of the rim completely blocks off the turn signal and headlight icons, so you can't see any of them at all. At least you can still clearly see the digital speedo and the digital tachometer. We'd still rather have some form of an analog needle that shows what RPM the engine is spinning. Definitely better than the green unmarked bar graph that goes around the tachometer. For a midsize sedan, the K5's rear seat is roomy and pretty comfortable. There's ample underleg support, really good knee space, and we really like the defined contours of both the seat back and the bottom cushion, which give you some support. And unlike some sedans, the seat back isn't overly upright. There's also just enough space under the front seats to put your feet. There's also reasonably comfortable and well-placed door and center pull-down armrests. So the K5's trunk, it's good size and it has a nice wide opening, but more than that, we were pleasantly surprised to find these concealed hinges that go down into these receptacles. What that means is when you close the trunk, you won't have a hinge that comes down and crushes whatever luggage you have in there. Overall, the K5 is a nice driving sedan that also happens to be pretty striking looking. The interior stands out for its unique design, large screens, and solid build quality, with just a few minor annoyances from the controls. The powertrain isn't a standout, but it really doesn't do anything wrong. And the really good ride-to-handling compromise, along with comfortable seats front and rear, and all of this at the K5's $31,000 as-tested price, this is a pretty good car. For more on midsize sedans, check out consumerreports.org.